Well, first and foremost, I know we saw, PlayStation had their event this past week. We saw the state of play. I know that there's some people have had some. I've heard some people say they was underwhelmed. I think there was a few games I saw that I was very interested in. So clearly, everyone doesn't have the same opinion of what they thought of the show itself. But one of the main highlights of the show was the announcement that Final Fantasy VII Remake is finally coming to PS5. There is going to be a version called Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade. And I believe it's coming in June to PS5. Now, the issue with this is that the day after this was announced, we got the announcement that Final Fantasy VII is actually a PlayStation Plus game for March. So, obviously, Square Enix had this dialogue which says if you have Final Fantasy VII Remake for PS4, you would be eligible to upgrade it to the PS5 version when it comes out in June. However, when they announced yesterday that the PS Plus that is coming to PS Plus, they also several articles that came out after the fact that stated that the PS Plus version of Final Fantasy VII Remake is not eligible for upgrade on PS5. So basically, that means that if you want to play Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade, you have to, number one, have a PS5, and number two, purchase the game. And of course, the other part of that is the DLC featuring Yuffie, I believe. That is a separate price all by itself. Because I saw when they had the graphic up, and obviously this could change later. When they had the graphic up about what they were doing, it pretty much said in there, in the fine print, that DLC is going to be a separate price. So, with that in mind, with all of this information in mind, I'm curious what you gentlemen's reaction was to this news. And I don't know if you've heard about the PS Plus thing, because that was something that I just found about yesterday, because that's when it was made public. But I'm going to go to you first, Austin, to see what your take is on it, because I'm curious to hear what your opinion is.
You're going to me first because you're letting Gary stew. Honestly, like, I just bought. I think there was an $80 version which had. It wasn't the cloud statue, but it was the step above the basic Final Fantasy VII version, the thicker box set with the soundtrack. I just bought that one 2 months ago, so I saw the PS5 re-release and announcement, and I'll put it this way: I am glad. I'm viewing it objectively. The PS5 upgrade is a reward or incentive for those who bought the PS4 version.
Mm-hmm.
So I get not giving it to those who get the game as a PlayStation Plus download. It's not the nicest of moves, but I understand it. It's like, well, you didn't buy the game, so you're not going to get the PS5 upgrade. It's the separate DLC price that doesn't gel with me. I haven't played Final Fantasy VII yet. I'm really excited. I know what they've done with the story. That really intrigues me. I view it a little more casually. Somebody who also will dabble with the series, and specifically this game, not as a hardcore fan, but as someone who has a high level of interest. So it's a weird situation where it's I can see why the hardcore fans would get upset, but I also feel like the hardcore fans were going to buy it anyway.
Uh-oh. Gary, I think that's directed towards you.
Not necessarily. Not necessarily. But I don't I don't know. For me, it's an enthusiast issue. There are certain I have my own actions that I can't necessarily explain. God knows if there's a legendary edition of Halo Infinite finally announced, I'm gonna go buy the copy of the game as well as pre-download it on Game Pass. I'll buy the game and then like download it, while I can, because I'm a huge Halo fan. If they did that for Uncharted 5, like I I'm a straight man, but I have an undeniable love for Nathan. So I would totally do that with Uncharted 5. So ultimately, it just comes down to like your level of fandom based on the particular issue at hand.
Hmm.
Um, I see the decision from a business standpoint. I do think it hurts the most passionate fans, but at the same time, I feel like the most passionate fans, a good percentage, not all, not to generalize,
Hmm.
but I feel like a good percentage of the most passionate fans would probably double dip anyway.
And that's a very good point. And I will also add that one thing that we can all agree with is that Square Enix has assured that are going to get some money one way or another. Either you are going to buy Final Fantasy VII Remake, or you are going to buy the DLC because that DLC is exclusive to PS5. So yeah, they made sure of that because they confirmed that it's not coming to PS4. That DLC.
They are historically very sneaky. Um, I haven't played a great I haven't played a great Square game for a while. I'm not saying there aren't great Square games.
Yeah,
I just haven't played any Square games for a bit myself, so I look forward to maybe getting into it. But yeah, it's like I know that fandom in that game in particular, especially if you're an OG Final Fantasy VII fan, elicits a very strong and visceral reaction from its fans. Um, it's one of those situations where like I don't think it's my place to pass too much judgment, just because like it feels like it's a family fair, and I'm not really a part of the family, so I don't know exactly how much I can say or can't say about like what goes down between Final Fantasy VII and its fans, if that
yeah,
makes sense.
I understand that. So, Gary, now is your moment to shine. What is your opinion on all of this?
Okay, so here's why I'm very disappointed with Square Enix, right? So, so if you look at Final Fantasy as an IP for Square Enix, right? For a long time, people haven't been happy with it, right? Dating all the way back to Final Fantasy 13. Now, I personally like 13 after replaying it a few times. Like, I actually do like it. I like the whole trilogy. But I'm looking at this from a broad view. And the broad view is that a lot of people didn't like it. They felt like it didn't add up to, the level of quality that we associate with Final Fantasy, the brand. So a lot of people at that point were unhappy with Square Enix and the direction they were going, right? So Final Fantasy 14, the first one was a disaster, but they re-released it as a Realm Reborn, and that was very good. So that was a plus for them there. Final Fantasy 15, it was okay, it was decent, but it still didn't scratch that itch that we've been waiting for years. Like, because really, like the last Final Fantasy that you could call a classic was maybe Final Fantasy X. Like, I consider Final Fantasy 12 a good game, but I wouldn't put it as a classic. I just feel like it didn't have that epic, that grand feel of all the older titles like Final Fantasy 7, Final Fantasy 8 and 9 and 10. Final Fantasy 12 just it's lacking just a little bit of edge that made those other games classic, but it's still a great game overall. It's still like one of the best since 10, I guess. So it's still a good game, still worth playing. But 15, it was lacking. It like 15 king, it wasn't worthy of having that Final Fantasy name. And I also feel like the characters were kind of bland. The setting was like it just didn't make sense because you had like epic fantasy characters and like just like modern people kind of thing, like modern, so like there was a clash with the attire basically. So like you would have like epic fantasy looking people next to like a mechanic, a modern day mechanic or something like that. Like it just felt off, like, and there was no
I've never seen a mechanic that attractive in my life.
There was just
she is very cute and busty. If I'm thinking about the same mechanic you're talking.
Yeah, exactly. Like that one. Like, but they didn't explain like why this is a thing. Like why is it like this? Like why is the world? Like they just didn't do a good job of building that in depth lore to the world, and that's what it was lacking. And yeah, it just wasn't great. Like it was an okay game gameplay wise, but story wise it was not good. So Final Fantasy. Oh, go ahead.
If I may ask, do you think Versus 13 would have been better than 15?
I do think it would have been, because they were playing off of what they did in 13. Like it was they were creating it around the same time, and I guess it was all going to tie in some way, or it was going to be based in that kind of universe. I forget the name that they had for it, but they were going to be
Crystallis Chronicles or something like that.
There you go. Yeah. They were going to be closely connected, and then they kind of had to rewrite the whole game and stuff. So and I think there was a lot of pressure behind that, because they had to kind of like rush a lot of things to make sure the game would release in time, and I think they ended up cutting things, and so I feel like that game suffered from a lot of development and management issues, but it had the potential, right? But Final Fantasy VII Remake delivered. It was the game we've been waiting for, for a long time, and a lot of people were happy with that. Like I mean, overwhelmingly happy actually. Like a lot of people. I had reservations, of course, because 7 is such an important game. It's important to a lot of people's lives. Like it brings them back to, what they were doing in '97 or whenever they played, right? So a lot of people were worried about it, but they did an amazing job, and it got us excited for what was to come next. And now this kind of puts a blemish on things, because one of the main problems I have with the gaming industry nowadays is that companies are basically predatory now, like when it comes to finding new ways to milk money from gamers.
Do you think they're monetizing nostalgia in ways that is unhealthy?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think monetizing nostalgia is necessarily a bad thing if it's done the right way. And Final Fantasy VII Remake was a step in the right direction. I mean, I would have liked to have had the whole story in one, but I don't mind, after playing it, I don't mind the approach that they're going with, because it did give them, the chance to flesh out a lot of things and create new possibilities. So I'm okay with it. They nailed it, basically. But what I have a problem with here is that I bought the game, right? I bought the game on PS4. And although I don't always like the idea of DLC, I should be entitled to whatever DLC comes for that game. Like any new story content or anything that comes out for that game, I should have it on the console that I bought the game for, right? So now they're asking people to upgrade to the PS5 version to be able to, unlock the Yuffie DLC. And I should also add as well that Yuffie is actually one of my favorite characters from the original 7. So I'm extra upset about this. So you're asking me to buy a whole new piece of hardware, and rebuy the game or whatever. Wait, do you have to rebuy the game as well?
Well, you get the free.
You're
supposed to get a free upgrade as long as you purchase the game and didn't get it on PS Plus.
Okay, so like you buy the game on PS4, right? and
Yeah.
you get the free upgrade, do you have to pay again for anything, or you just you have to
The
pay for the
DLC.
PS5? Okay.
The DLC. Yep.
Okay. So yeah, like I just don't like the business model because to me, like if you look at other things Square Enix have done lately, so they've had the Avengers game, and I know that's more the Western side of Square Enix, but
Hmm.
you know it falls in line with the thinking behind these business decisions, and it's all based on making people spend more money, or and in this case I'm guessing maybe PlayStation played a part too, maybe because of course they want people to buy the PS5, and they know that this is such an important game, and this is one of the games that could potentially get people to buy the PS5. So I'm sure there was some dialogue between the two companies about choosing this path, but I just don't like it because if I buy your game on a platform, I should have access to the DLC on that platform. Like you could mark up the price if you wanted to, or whatever, but I should be able to play that DLC on that console without having to spend hundreds of pounds on a console. And I can afford the PS5, so I like is I might even end up buying it just because like I want to play it anyway, but I don't have to like it. I don't have to be happy about it, and I'm not like so.
If you can find one, hopefully they.
Yeah, that's another thing too. That's another thing. Like that console is pretty scarce at the moment. So
I had to kill a man to get mine.
You killed a
You
man?
said what?
I had to kill a man to get mine. It was a promise.
All right, so I'm gonna chop that part out of the podcast. So I don't wanna incriminate anyone. So
Why is there red on your PS5?
but yeah, like I just don't like it. It's one of the things I have a problem with in gaming. It's like everything is designed to get you to open up your wallet again in some way, and I don't like that. I miss when you could buy a product, get a full product, and DLC wasn't always a thing. But if it has to exist, I understand that there are positives with DLC because you're getting extra content, and then also this allows the studios to pay their staff, give them bonuses and that sort of thing. So there is, positives for DLC content. But yeah, I just feel like, if I buy the game, I should have access to everything on the platform I bought it on. Like you shouldn't be trying to force me to buy a completely new piece of hardware to finish, this title, that you've put out that I've already paid money for. So that's my biggest problem with, this direction. But I want to hear what you guys have to say about it.
I think that's completely valid. What I fear to happen, what I expect to happen, is they'll walk back on them, and the people who will end up paying the most are the people who are the most excited about it, who jumped in day one. Because I see, that's my biggest problem with digital DLC anytime these days, is how quickly it gets discounted.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like you punish the fans when, oh, you want this? You have to buy it either standalone or with the $7 game, and that's one of the reasons why when I did get a PS5, I was very adamant I wanted a disc-based PS5, because when Sony controls the digital marketplace and the digital prices, you don't have the potential competing prices from various retailers. I could see GameStop selling this $70 game for $40 a month and a half later. And I feel like it's just going to hurt, especially if they're like, oh yeah, Yuffie, episode Yuffie finally coming to PS4. It's well, damn, I just bought a PS5 to upgrade specifically for this. The people who get hurt the most with these types of moves tend to be the biggest fans, and I don't think that's right.
Yeah. I agree 100%. And I agree also with what you had to say, Gary. If you spent the money already on the game, it's kind of ridiculous you would have to pay extra in terms of actually purchasing a PlayStation 5 if you can find one just to play it. And the question I would have for Square Enix is why couldn't this just be a part of Episode 2 as opposed to it needing to release in June? That's the question that I would have.
That's another thing that made me have a problem with it, because Yuffie, I pronounce it Yuffie, by the way. Some people might have a problem with me for that, I don't know, but yeah, that's just how I pronounce it. So Yuffie, she doesn't even come into the story at this point in the original. Like she comes in once you leave Midgar, and she's actually an optional character in Final Fantasy VII, the original. Like, you know, and you can there's various times when you can recruit her, but yeah. So basically, this DLC is basically, you know, I'm guessing it's going to be new. It's a brand new story, right? Like it wasn't in the original, and I'm guessing this is going to lead to the moment when she first meets the main characters, Cloud and everything. I guess it's going to show how she ends up in the forest or wherever it is where you first meet her in the original. So yeah, like it just annoyed me more, because it's like either you guys are forcing content just to get us to, you know, spend money again and open our wallets again, or, you know, you're potentially alienating people from something that could actually be good, like for fans of the character. Like, maybe if this is good, you will learn more about, you know, her personal journey and her as a character. And, you know, it's kind of sad that maybe some people will be alienated from that. So there was two ways to look at it there, but yeah, that kind of, you know, just it just, to me, it seems like it's orchestrated for you to spend money, and this better be worth it is all I'm saying. Like, this actually better be good. And
I fully expect this. Oh, sorry.
Oh no, go ahead.
I was gonna say I fully expect this to be included in chapter 2 or part 2. You know, probably along with PS5 ported, like the Final Fantasy VII, the First Soldier mobile games that have been ported out. Like, they always find this will essentially be, I bet, the ground zeros to Episode 2's The Phantom Pain. You can buy it standalone right now, but eventually it's going to find a way in a greater package.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah,
I can see that.
Yeah, that could be a thing. And yeah, so the PlayStation Plus thing as well, that annoyed me, because it's like, okay, you drum up all of this hype by showing this DLC in this game at the state of play, and then I'm pretty sure you got a lot of sales for the game that same day. Like, a lot of people probably bought Final Fantasy VII Remake based on that state of the play alone, right? And then the next day you announce it's coming to PS Plus.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, the timing of the announcement, all those announcements, all that stuff could have been revealed up front.
Why couldn't you have just said, like, you know, it would have took like an extra 5 to 10 seconds or something, just say, oh, and by the way, this is coming to PlayStation Plus tomorrow. So you know. But no,
I think you're right. I think it's.
Oh no! The only point I was going to add is where my concern comes in is that I'm sure that, you know, some of this news was reported on some sites, but I have a feeling that there's going to be a lot of people that still don't know this, and they're going to download the PS Plus version of the game, and when they try to upgrade on PS5 and they're unable to, they'll be very angry about this. Because I feel like it feels like this could have and should have been communicated when they showed the game on the actual state of play, because it's at that point you have the attention of everybody right then and there that would be interested in this game. But the fact that they didn't do that is, I think that's a bit of a problem right there.
Yeah, and they could have cleared up everything right there and then. They could have said, like, yeah, it's available on PlayStation Plus, you can play it, but this doesn't count towards the DLC and the PS5 upgrade. Like, you know, they could have just clarified everything. but nope, they chose to wait, and I'm sure a lot of people bought the game after that stream. So, yeah.
Yeah. We'll see.
But yeah.
So,
but overall, I mean, it does suck that I'm being forced to potentially buy the PS5 earlier than I was going to, because I was gonna hold off for a while just because I'm at a state where I'm not playing games as much anymore, so I was really gonna wait until there's something that I'm eagerly anticipating before I buy it. But now it seems like I'm gonna be forced to buy it, so they got me essentially.
Oh no,
because
maybe not. Maybe things will change. You have a change of heart. Said no, I think I'm gonna wait.
Yeah, I mean, I am going to listen to the feedback as well, like, because if this is just like some cheap 30-minute DLC or something like that, then maybe I'll hold off. So,